Solzhenitsyn begins his discussion of interrogations and various types of interrogation with a definition. He says an inquiry, he's quoting from a manual, an inquiry is distinguished from an investigation by the fact that it is carried out to determine whether there is a basis for proceeding to an investigation. So in other words, Solzhenitsyn goes, you have some guy who has fallen under suspicion. So typically you don't just begin an investigation, which is to say, let's go through his files, let's get his bank records, let's just start interviewing everybody who knows him, let's try to see what we can get him on. He goes, before all that, you need to make some inquiry, some basic first step to see if there's anything here that warrants this kind of in-depth investigation. But he goes, oh, sacred simplicity. The organs never heard of such a thing as an inquiry, meaning the organs of the state, of the Soviet state. They've never done an inquiry. They know who they want to get, and when they know who they want to get, they begin an investigation. Straight to the investigation, and from the investigation to the arrest, and from the arrest to the confinement, and from the confinement to the conviction. It's almost like this is a preordained process, except it's ordained in this case not by God, but by the Soviet state. Solzhenitsyn. Lists of names prepared up above, or an initial suspicion, or a denunciation by an informer. These are all kind of classic police state ways in which people get on this list. Or an anonymous denunciation were all that was needed to bring about the arrest of the suspect, followed by the inevitable formal charge. So once you're arrested, don't think that they're doing some kind of investigation where they're trying to find out, because if they're trying to find out, they could find out yes, but they could also find out no. So there's a chance that you'll be confined and charged, or there's a chance that you'll be released. But in a police state, no. Once you're arrested, you will be charged. You will not be released. This is, your fate in a sense is sealed from the beginning. The time allotted for investigation was not used to unravel the crime, but in 95 cases out of 100 to exhaust, wear down, weaken, and render helpless the defendant so that he would want to end it at any cost. So here Solzhenitsyn is getting to a technique that is by no means confined to the Soviet Union or even other police states. We see it here in the United States. I've seen the process go on more than once where they interview someone. It goes on for hours and hours and hours. We have a couple of scenes in the movie Police State where people are describing something similar. In one case, a guy, his name is Joseph Bolanos. He's in the film. He didn't go in the Capitol on January 6th. And eventually he wasn't charged, but they tried their best to break him down. In fact, they did it so effectively that he had a stroke while he was going through the interrogation process. And so Solzhenitsyn, they're not interrogating you to find anything out. They're interrogating you so you will break down, you're tired, you're exhausted, you've had it, and you will say anything, which is another way of saying you will say what they want you to say, and then they go, sign here, or they've recorded you, and your fate is sealed. The purpose of this is nothing more than for them to triumphantly be able to say, you even confessed. The guy admitted it, Dinesh, so he obviously did it. Why else would he admit it? Now again, this has its equivalent even here in this country. And the way that is done is through the plea bargain. So the plea bargain is a legal kind of bludgeoning. Hey, listen, we have some evidence against you. Who knows if we'll get a conviction, and we might fail. But guess what? Maybe we have a 50% chance. It depends on the judge, depends on the jury, depends on the environment, depends what people are feeling in a vengeful mood today. So we're going to offer you a chance to get out of this, and you're not going to be facing 10 years, or you're not going to be facing 5 years. Plead guilty, pay a fine, and we'll give you 6 months. So think about it. That, yeah, to some degree, that would cause some guilty people to say, okay, I'll take the deal. It's better than facing the other. But it also causes innocent people to use exactly the same reasoning. I don't want to risk 5 or 10 years of being locked up. It'll destroy me, my family, really my whole world. I'll never be the same. So I'll take the plea even though I didn't do it, even though I'm not guilty. And so you see here that a legal system is not necessarily an instrument of justice. In the wrong hands and used in the wrong way, even in a democratic society like our own, it can be used to wreak tremendous injustice and do so knowingly. I think in some cases today, all across the country, we have prosecutors who it's not that they know you didn't do it, because they're probably, if they know you didn't do it, there's going to be a bunch of them that go, it's too much to try to put a guy we know to be guilty into prison. I'm convinced it does happen, but it doesn't happen probably most of the time. Most of the time it's, I don't know if he did it, but guess what? I kind of want to move on to another case. I want to get a conviction. I want to put a notch in my belt. I'm thinking of running for office, or this guy is an enemy of somebody who I want to appease. So listen, I'm going to offer them a plea bargain. I'll bring the full force of the system down on them. In a sense, think about it. It's perhaps a more civilized way, but it's not that different than what Solzhenitsyn is describing here. The time allotted for the investigation is not to investigate, he says. And again, there's a little bit of black humor here. I think if you step back, you can sort of see, you can feel a dark sense of chuckling over this kind of stuff. Hey, we have an investigation, but we're not investigating anything. We're using this time to browbeat the guy who's in our captivity, to break them down in all kinds of ways. And as we continue with this chapter, we'll discover the multiple imaginative ways that are used to break down the defendant. But whether it's through legal bludgeoning in the United States by our police state, or physical bludgeoning, and that's one of the techniques in a Soviet police state, the result being aimed at is not all that different. If aches and pains are your problem, Relief Factor is your remedy. Debbie and I started taking Relief Factor a couple of years ago, and we have seen enormous difference in our joints. Nothing short of amazing. Aches and pains are totally gone thanks to this 100% drug-free solution called Relief Factor. How does it work? Relief Factor supports your body's fight against inflammation. That's the source of aches and pains. More than 1 million people have tried Relief Factor. The vast majority, about 70%, have gone on to order more. Debbie's a true believer. She can now do exercises that for a long time she wasn't able to do. Relief Factor has been a real game changer for her, her aunt, other members of our family, Mike here in the studio, and for many other people. You too can benefit. Try it for yourself. Order the 3-week quick start for the discounted price of just $19.95. Go to relieffactor.com or call 800-4-RELIEF to find out more about this offer. The number again to call, 800-4-RELIEF, or go to relieffactor.com. Feel the difference.